Hello everyone, I am NSG Saranya, Assistant Professor, Mechanical Engineering Department, BBC Engineering College, Autonomous Sodal Revo. So in the series of videos lectures of instrumentation and control systems, today we are going to see the topic measurement of pressure. So the next instrument we are going to see is McLeod gauge. So in this gauge is used to measure the vacuum pressures. So this gauge works on the principle of Boyle's law. So what is Boyle's law? P1 V1 equal to P2 V2 means the pressure and volume at initial condition should be equal to pressure and volume at final condition. Initial condition means before compression and final condition means after compression. So in this McLeod gas, what we are going to do is a known volume gas means very low pressure gas is compressed to a smaller volume, so with high pressure, and using the resulting volume and pressure, the initial pressure can be calculated. So this is the principle behind the McLeod vacuum gas. Means actually we don't know the P1, so but we know the volume of V1. So what we will do? So that gas we will compress to P2 to the known volume V2. So now we know P1, P2, V2. So now we will find the P1. So this is how McLeod vacuum gas will works. So this is the figure which will shows the construction of the McLeod gas. So this McLeod gas has the reference column with a reference capillary tube. This is reference column and this is a reference capillary tube, and the reference capillary tube has a zero reference point. So and this reference column is connected to a bulb and the measuring capillary. And the place of the connection of the bulb with the reference column, this one is called as a cutoff point. So below the reference column and the bulb there is a mercury reservoir operated by a piston. So this is called as cutoff point. I will explain while explaining the operation of this McLeod gas. So coming to the operation of this McLeod gas, initially we have to send the pressure P1 means the pressure to be measured to be sent to the top of the reference column of the McLeod gas. So now what will happen? This is case 1, condition 1. The applied pressure fills the bulb. This applied pressure fills this bulb and the capillary. Now what we have to do is, now the piston is operated. Now we have to operate the piston so that mercury level in the gauge increases. Means we have to operate the piston up to mercury level reaches this cutoff point. So at this cutoff point, a known volume of gas V1 is trapped in the bulb and the measuring capillary tube. Okay. So when we operate this piston up to mercury level reaches this cutoff point, what will happen? So this unknown pressure P1 will occupies this measuring capillary and also measuring capillary tube and trapped in this bulb. Now in the condition 2, what we will do is the mercury level is further raised by operating the piston so that the trapped gas in the bulb and the measuring tube are compressed. So this is done until the mercury level reaches the zero reference point marked on the reference capillary. This is condition 2. So in this condition, the volume of gas in the measuring capillary tube is readed directly by a scale besides it. So that is the difference in the height h of the measuring capillary, and the reference capillary becomes a measure of the volume V2 and pressure P2 of the trapped gas. So see here, I will explain again. Initially, when we apply the pressure P1 here, it occupies this reference column and the measuring capillary tube. So then we are operating the piston. So by operating the piston, the mercury reaches up to this cutoff point. Now suppose if you take the reference as this one, so the pressure P1 is occupied along this capillary tube, this one and this area and along this area. Now in the condition 2, what we are doing is, again we are applying the pressure by this piston on the mercury. Now the mercury, so now we have to apply the pressure on the mercury up to the mercury reaches this zero reference point. So as the mercury was reaching this reference column up to zero reference point, the pressure already here in the P1 was there was no place to go out, so that this pressure was entrapped in this area by this mercury. So this entrapped pressure, the compressed gas, is P2. Let's see some calculations. Now by the Boyle's law, P1 V1 equal to P2 V2. So let's take the volume V equal to volume of the bulb. So the volume of the bulb from the cutting point to the beginning of the measuring of the capillary tube. So up to here. Let area equal to area A equal to area of the cross section of the measuring capillary tube. Next HC equal to height of the measuring capillary tube. Suppose now the initial volume V1 equal to, so initially P1 occupies along this one, right? So V1 equal to this V up to here V plus, so this one, the area of cross section of this capillary tube, A into height of this one HC. Next, so after the gas entrapped in this area, so what is the volume? V2 equal to area of cross section A into compressed gas height H. So P1 V1 equal to P2 V2. So now we have V1 V2. So what is P2? Initially the pressure is P1. So P2 equal to P1 plus up to at which height it was entrapped, at height H. So P2 equal to P1 plus H. So substitute this one here. Therefore P1 equal to AH square by V1 minus AH. But now see here, AH, the area AH is very small compared to the volume V1. So that's what we are neglecting the H. Therefore P1 equal to AH square by V1. So this is the unknown pressure P1. This is how McLeod gauge will works. By this McLeod gauge we are going to find out the vacuum pressures. So coming to the applications, as you know, so these are used to measure vacuum pressure. And advantages are, and it is independent of the gas composition, and it serves as a reference standard to calibrate other low pressure gauges, and a linear relationship exists between the applied pressure and H. So there is no need to apply corrections to the McLeod gauge readings. And coming to the limitation, the main limitation is the gas whose pressure is to be measured should obey the Boyle's law, and of course it cannot give a continuous output, and sometimes the moisture will entraps in the capillary tube, so always you have to check that one. The next type of gauges we are going to see are thermal conductivity gauges. So when a conducting wire gets heated, when electric current flows through it, so the rate at which heat is dissipated from this wire depends on the conductivity of the surrounding media. The conductivity of the surrounding media in turn depends on the density of the surrounding media. So if the density of the surrounding is low, its conductivity will also be low, causing the wire to become hotter for a given current flow and vice versa. So if you see here, so all are interlinked. So when the electric current flows through the conducting wire, it gets heated, but the heat dissipation depends on the conductivity of the surrounding media. Means the conductivity of the surrounding media in turn depends on the density of the surrounding media. Density of the surrounding media in turn depends on the pressure of the surrounding media. Means lower the pressure, lower will be the density. If the density of the surrounding media is very low, its conductivity will also be low, causing the wire to become hotter for a given current flow. Means if the density of the surrounding media is low, means if the molecules are very less, so how can the heat will be dissipated? It cannot dissipate the heat. So the wire will become more hotter for a given current flow. So this is the principle behind the thermal conductivity gauges. So in thermal conductivity gauges we have two types. Those are Pirani gauge and thermocouple type conductivity gauge. So coming to the construction of Pirani gauge, we have a Pirani gauge chamber enclosing a platinum filament, a compensating cell to minimize radiation caused due to ambient temperature changes, and the both Pirani gauge chamber and compensating cell is housed on a Wheatstone bridge circuit. Now you will see the operation of this Pirani gauge. A constant current is passed through the filament in the Pirani gas chamber. Due to this current, the filament gets heated and assumes a resistance which is measured using the bridge. Now the pressure to be measured is connected to the Pirani gas chamber. Due to the applied pressure, the density of the surrounding of the Pirani gauge filament changes. Now see here, by the principle of thermal conductivity gauge, higher pressure, higher density, higher conductivity, reduced filament temperature and less resistance of filament. So by this principle, now what happens? Due to this change in density of the surrounding of the filament, conductivity changes, causing the temperature of the filament to change. So when the temperature of the filament changes, the resistance of the filament also changes. Now this change in resistance of the filament is determined using the Wheatstone circuit. This change in resistance of the Pirani gauge element becomes a measure of the applied pressure when calibrated. So this is the working of Pirani gauge. Coming to the applications of Pirani gauge, as you already know, it is used to measure low vacuum and ultra high vacuum pressures. So they are rugged, inexpensive, accurate results and good response to pressure changes. And there was a linear relationship between pressure and resistance changes, and readings can be taken from a distance also. But the limitations are they must be checked frequently, they must be calibrated for different gases. Electric power is a must for its operation. Next type of thermal conductivity gauge is thermocouple type conductivity gauge. So if you see the construction of this one, a chamber whose one side is open to receive the applied pressure, usually vacuum. Inside the chamber, a filament is placed which in turn connected with the rheostat, ammeter and battery. So on the filament, a thermocouple is welded to measure the temperature of the filament. The thermocouple is in turn connected to a millivoltmeter. So if you see the operation of this one, a constant current is passed through the filament in the chamber. Due to this current, the filament gets heated and the filament temperature is sensed by the thermocouple, which was welded to the filament. So now the pressure to be measured is connected to the chamber. Due to the applied pressure, the density of the surrounding of the filament changes. Due to this change in density of the surrounding of the filament, its conductivity changes, causing the temperature of the filament to change. This change in temperature of the filament is sensed by the thermocouple welded to the filament. This change in temperature of the filament becomes a measure of the applied pressure when calibrated. The millivoltmeter can be calibrated to directly read the applied pressure. So this is the working of thermocouple type conductivity gauge. Coming to the applications of thermocouple type thermal conductivity gauge, it is used to measure low vacuum and ultra high vacuum pressures, and same as Pirani gauge, rugged and inexpensive, readings can be taken from a distance and easy to use, and a linear relationship between pressure and temperature. But the thing here is, filament gets burned out frequently, and same as Pirani gauge, it should be calibrated for different gases. Electrical power is a must for its operation. Next pressure measurement device is ionization gauge. So it works on the principle of ionization. So what is ionization? It is the process of knocking off an electron from an atom and this producing a free electron and a positively charged ion. So on this principle, this will be works. So if you see the construction of ionization gauge, you can see here a cathode, a grid and a plate. Okay, the plate, it is also called as anode, are placed inside a chamber. And the chamber is open at one end to receive the applied pressure, and the grid is maintained at positive potential. The plate anode is negatively biased. Now if you see the operation, the pressure to be measured from the cathode and these electrons collide with the gas. Now if you see the operation, pressure to be measured is connected to the chamber. The grid draws the electrons from the cathode and these electrons collides with the gas molecules and thereby causing the ionization of the gas molecules. The positively charged molecules are then attracted to the plate anode, causing a current flow in the external circuit. The measurement of this current becomes a measure of the applied gas pressure. So this is the working of ionization gauge. So coming to ionization gauge, These are also used for measuring low vacuum and ultra high vacuum pressures. So measurement can be done from a distance and fast response to pressure changes and have a good sensitivity. But the limitations are, so the filament burns out quickly, so filament temperature should be controlled properly, and it also has to be calibrated for different gases. Some gases might get decomposed due to hot filament. So next we are going to see the dead weight piston gauge. This dead weight piston gauge is used for not only measurement of pressure but also to calibrate the pressure measuring devices. So coming to the construction, there was a chamber which was filled with oil free of impurities and a piston cylinder combination which is fitted above the chamber, and the top portion of the piston which is attached with a platform to carry weights. A plunger with a handle has been provided to vary the pressure of oil in the chamber. The pressure gauge to be tested which is fitted at an appropriate place. Now we will see the procedure for calibration of pressure gauges. So for the calibration of pressure gauge means introducing an accurately known sample of pressure to the gauge under test and then observing the response of the gauge. So in order to create this accurately known pressure, the following steps are to be followed. First, what we have to do is the valve of the apparatus should be closed, means this valve. So this is the pressure gauge what we have to calibrate. So first initially we have to close this valve. Now a known weight is placed on the platform. So now by operating the plunger, fluid pressure is applied to the other side of the piston until enough force is developed to lift the piston weight combination. When this happens, the piston weight combination floats freely within the cylinder between these two limit stops. So in this condition of equilibrium, the pressure force of fluid is balanced against the gravitational force of the weights plus the frictional drag. In this condition of equilibrium, the pressure force of fluid is balanced against the gravitational force of the weights plus the friction drag. So if you see the equation, Pa equal to mg plus F, where P equal to pressure, A equal to equivalent area of piston cylinder combination meter square. So this is the pressure applied by the plunger on the fluid to lift the piston up. And if you see mg plus F, where m equal to mass, g equal to acceleration due to gravity, and F equal to friction drag. So this is the force applied by the piston, so which have the weights on it on the fluid. So this is the way where we have to balance both the pressures. Then we will get the P equal to mg plus F by A. So this is the pressure P which is caused due to the weights placed on the platform is calculated. Now after calculating the P, the plunger is to be released and the weights on the piston has to be removed. Now the pressure gauge to be calibrated is fitted at an appropriate place in the dead weight piston. The same known weight which was used to calculate P is placed on the platform. Due to the weight, the piston moves downwards and exerts a pressure P on the fluid. Now the valve of the operator is open so that the fluid pressure P is transmitted to the gauge, which makes the gauge indicate a pressure value. The pressure value shown by the gauge should be equal to the known input pressure P we have calculated earlier. If the gauge indicates other value other than P, then the gauge is adjusted so that it reads a value to P. This is how the dead weight piston gauge will be used. So coming to the applications, it is used to calibrate all kind of pressure gauges such as industrial pressure gauges, engine indicators, piezoelectric transducers, etc. So mainly it was used to calibrate the pressure gauges. And coming to advantages, simple is construction easy to use, calibrate wide range of pressure measuring devices. So fluid pressure can be easily varied by adding weights or by changing the piston cylinder combination. So the main limitation is it is affected due to friction between the piston and cylinder and due to the uncertainty of the value of the gravitational constant G. So these are the different types of pressure measurements we have discussed so far.